Hello, and welcome to Trans Truth, the podcast dedicated to dispelling myths, fear, and ignorance about transgender people. Along the way, we'll be sharing items of interest to the transgender community, from political and news events to health, fashion, and beauty. And now, let's have a look at some news items that should be of interest to our listeners. So, stop me if you've heard this one. Quote, young patients struggling with gender dysphoria are being permanently harmed by the wrong treatment plan, and faithful families are running out of places to turn for evidence-based, life-affirming alternatives to the manipulative and destructive treatments currently being promoted by leading medical organizations and healthcare systems in order to serve their own profits and ideology, unquote. That's from a recent article in Real Clear Health, a faith-based propaganda organ pretending to be a journalistic source. I should say another faith-based propaganda organ. Anyway, in the article, they cite what they are calling, quote, a landmark paper titled The Ideology of Gender Harms Children, which challenges the medical community's status quo treatment for these patients. Gender dysphoria, the psychological condition in which the individual feels an incongruence between his or her experienced gender and his or her biological sex, has for too long been promoted by left-wing politicians and a politicized medical community as a condition with limited solutions: destructive surgical intervention and or gender affirmation. But these short-sighted solutions merely exacerbate the intense pain and suffering young patients experience, unquote. Yeah, we will spare you any more of the pathetically bald propaganda in that paper and that article, and note once again that the right appears to have absolutely no shame in appropriating terms like gender-affirming care and then twisting it to mean what they want it to mean. In other words, their lies are only getting bolder. MetroPhiladelphia.com has a story about older transgender people starting to worry about finding the support they will need as they age. The article starts off with feelings expressed by Raji Naran Singh, who faced struggles throughout her life as a transgender woman, from workplace discrimination to the lasting effects of black market injections that scarred her face and caused chronic infections. In spite of these roadblocks, the 56-year-old Florida actress and activist has seen growing acceptance since she first came out decades ago. Then there are the laws being passed in red states that restrict access to health care for trans patients. Yes, it's true that, for now at least, most of these laws apply to pediatric care only, but at least one state, you guessed it, Florida, has passed laws making it harder for adults as well. Now, geriatric patients in general have a harder time getting the health care they need, and this is only going to be harder, at least in the red states, for geriatric trans patients. We note again that this trend is exactly what took place in pre-war Nazi Germany, when Jews were systematically deprived of basic human rights. And finally, on a positive note, and I just love this story, Elle.com is reporting the story of Justine Lindsay, the first openly transgender woman in NFL cheerleading. You heard me right. An NFL cheerleader. It would seem that the cheerleading squad of the Carolina Panthers, known as the Top Cats, has welcomed Lindsay with open arms, as has the team itself, and even the fans, mostly. While it's a cinch that not every NFL fan is happy about this, that so many of them are is a really good thing, at least in my opinion. And Justine, I guess, is not just a pretty face. She holds a degree in communications from North Carolina State University and is an alumnus of the Debbie Allen Dance Academy, which she attended on scholarship at the age of 14. Now, the Allen Academy counts multiple Disney Channel stars among its alumni. Anyway, it's a long article with all kinds of fascinating anecdotes and other details about this slightly larger-than-life trans woman, like the fact that she, too, does a podcast. So check it out. As always, links to all of our stories are in the episode notes at www.transtruth.info. Well, hello again, and welcome back to Trans Truth. I am your host, Kelly Nelson. She, her, hers, joined as always by...
I'm Jerry Ann, and my pronouns are also she, her, and hers.
So in our last episode, Jerry Ann and I were talking about movies that dealt in some way with transgender topics. Yes, we left the definition pretty loose, encompassing everything from drag to cross-dressing to pretty much anything in between, as long as it was a feature-length motion picture.
This episode, we're making another almost arbitrary distinction and restricting our list to television programs, including feature-length titles that were originally at least produced for TV.
So in researching this segment, I discovered more interesting things. The quality of a handful of TV productions, particularly of the documentaries, is much better overall. By the way, we're not giving any air to the right-wing nut propaganda posing as documentary work. Do your own Googling for that, if that's what you're after. Anyway, after that handful, the quality falls off the cliff quickly, i.e. lots of sensationalist trash. This I attribute to the fact that ratings, and thereby commercial viability, drives the decisions on what makes it to air in the television world. Sensationalism is king. Virtually all of the news departments of mainstream TV networks are subordinate to the entertainment division, and it shows. Can you say Jerry Springer?
Well, warnings from our movies episodes still apply. 1, we're using the term transgender pretty loosely here. If it has a drag queen, a crossdresser, or a trans woman or trans man in it, it's fair game. And 2, this is not a top 10 list. We're just throwing the titles that we could think of, just the good ones this time, into the cauldron and letting it bubble. So, first of our shows is Lily, a transgender story. A charming BBC documentary about a young woman's journey to transition. It is streaming on YouTube.
I really enjoyed that one. It was shot over 4 or 5 years, and it's a true documentary. It just followed this young woman through all the stages of her transition.
Do you recall what year it first aired?
I don't. But like you said, it's there on YouTube.
Yeah.
Next up, Louis Theroux, I think it's pronounced. Anyway, Louis Theroux, Transgender Kids. This is a 2015 documentary that takes a refreshingly deep and sensitive look at the experiences of trans kids and their families. It's Too bad that Republican state legislators could not bring themselves to watch this and learn about the reality here before passing laws that they claim will protect the children. Again, another one highly recommended and streaming free from watchdocumentaries.com.
Next on our list is The Stroll, the Sundance Film Festival award winner by directors Zachary Drucker and Kristen Lovell. It gets 5 stars from me. It documents a place and time in New York City when, in the 70s and 80s, and long before Carrie Bradshaw and the Sex and the City gals occupied the new gentrified meatpacking district. At that time, a section of 14th Street known as the Stroll was the turf worked by New York City's trans sex workers. Lovell brings perspective that can only come from actually living the experience shared by trans sex workers who worked the Stroll. The film features a combination of historical footage and present day interviews with veterans, or perhaps we should say survivors of that time. It's all cut together masterfully to make for a riveting viewing experience. If you only watch one of the shows on our list, make it this one. It's currently showing on HBO and its streaming branch, Max.
Next up, oh my, Tales of the City. We're actually talking about 2 TV miniseries here. The original 1993 series, set in 1976 San Francisco, and starring Olympia Dukakis, Laura Linney, and a brilliantly selected cast of supporting characters. And the 2019 reboot. It's a sequel of sorts, also featuring Dukakis and a young Elliot Page. Some characters from the original cast return, plus some new characters that, well, let's just say they could not have existed in 1976. No, not even in San Francisco. Anyway, the reboot sees Linney, 25 years older, coming home to 28 Barbary Lane, where her character grew and experienced so much in 1976. Both films take a loving look at the LGBTQ community in one of its meccas, San Francisco. Of particular note is how the writers wove historical events into the story, giving this fictional work a certain air of credibility, if you will. By the way, one of those events is introduced by one of the characters as the Rosa Parks bus of trans history. Later, the location and events are depicted as flashbacks for 2 of the characters. The Compton's Cafeteria riot was a riot by trans women and drag queens, prompted by rank abuse by the police force that actually happened in San Francisco's Tenderloin district over 2 years before the infamous Stonewall riot in New York City. Google up the Compton's Cafeteria riot for the scoop, and shame on you if you have never heard of this landmark event in our history. Okay, I am from the left coast, and I get a little touchy when the world thinks that nothing much of import ever happens west of the Mississippi. Okay. Oh, one more full-on geek moment. One of my favorite cinematic treats is when characters, script, or even the cinematography itself makes a subtle reference to another cinematic work. In the documentary Disclosure, which we talked about in our trans movies episode, some footage from Tales of the City actually makes a sort of cameo appearance. Anyway, a fairer treatment of LGBTQ plus characters I have never seen in TV or on film. 5 stars for both of these gems. The original series is currently streaming on multiple services, including Vudu, Tubi, Pluto, and the Roku channel. The sequel is streaming now on Netflix. Oh, one more thing. Apparently, there was a 6-episode sequel released in 1998 titled More Tales of the City. It is not available on any streaming service, and the now out-of-print DVD is $76.99 on Amazon, new, with used copies fetching $50. I don't know about y'all, but this girl don't pay $50 for anything released on the small screen. By the way, this series was all of these series were based on the series of novels by Amistad Maupin. And I have just started reading those, so I'll be back eventually with some reviews on that.
Well, Kelly, we'll have to do an episode on transgender in literature, perhaps.
Good idea.
All right. Well, next up on our list is Transparent. It was a TV series that ran for 4 seasons, plus a feature-length finale. It starred Jeffrey Tambor as a trans woman named Mara and revolved around the drama of her coming out and the inherent drama of a family dealing with not just a parent's gender identity, but their own issues as well. And this is where the series lost me. I mean, it's great that the story went beyond a dad who transitioned, but it's never strayed far from that. And even when it did, it was rather much like all the other primetime soap opera stories. It's streaming on Amazon Prime. Next, Orange is the New Black. This one was a soap opera set in a New York penitentiary. Oh, stop that. Right now, you gutter minded bitches. This was not a pun. It's a woman's prison for crying out loud.
Oh, I get it. So, prison. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Orange is the New Black made Laverne Cox a household name, and for good reason. It was the most successful and longest running original TV series ever produced by a streaming service. The series won multiple Emmy Awards, the first to ever do so in multiple categories drama and comedy series. Enough said. It's streaming on Netflix and available for purchase on multiple services.
Next up, Star Trek Discovery. Star Trek The Next Generation may have dabbled with transgender characters, non binary aliens, for example, but Discovery finally has LGBTQ characters as members of the crew. And it has done so with amazing empathy, sensitivity, and understanding. So there's that, the transgender thing, but I'm not ashamed to admit I've been a lifelong Trekkie. I even went to one of the first Star Trek conventions back in the late 70s. Anyway, this series, more than any of the others, in my opinion, embodies much of what made the original Star Trek such a groundbreaking series. First interracial kiss, for example. Anyway, if you like sci-fi at all, see this one. And the first 4 seasons are available now on Paramount Plus, and the final season is due in early 2024, they tell us.
Next on our list is Robert Reed. Yes, that Robert Reed, aka Mike Brady of the Brady Bunch, played Dr. Pat Gaddison in the two-part season 7 opener of Medical Center. Yes, I am that old. Just shut up.
Well, I was just going to say, I saw it too. I remember
Oh,
that
okay. I
one.
thought you were going to say your grandmother told you about that one. Okay. Anyway,
Remember, I am older than the town I live in.
a colleague of the series' lead character, Dr. Joe Gannon, Gaddison reveals his intention to transition to a female. And through the magic of television, that all happens, surgery and all, in a fraction of an episode. I remember as a teenager watching those episodes with my family in 1976, petrified that they'd see something on my face that betrayed my rapt fascination with the character and the story. Did you ever have experiences like that, Kelly?
I had that exact same experience.
I tell you what, it goes beyond this one show. It, every single time over many decades in my life, whether with a former spouse or family or whatever, when a transgender character or transgender issue was on the electric television, I locked up. I froze. I didn't know whether to emulate interest like everybody
I
else was, or did it, but for
I know
fear
what you
that,
mean. You don't even know where to look.
yeah, you don't know what to look, you don't know how to look, where to look.
Yeah.
It's awkward. It's, you know, we remember tragic things from our past and good things. And those awkward moments stick in my mind as tragic things. It's that uncomfortable. Anyway, what's next?
Well, that's it for this episode of our look at transgender characters and themes in television. But we are barely scratching the surface when it comes down to trans characters. Wikipedia alone lists over 150 trans TV characters, and that's not including the occasional gag performances by the likes of Milton Berle and Flip Wilson. Get off my lawn and Google them, babies. Not to mention the likes of Eddie Izzard and other honest-to-goodness trans and non-binary comics. Anyway, in our next episode, we're tackling an even longer list, the transgender subjects and influences in popular music. Until then, keep spreading truth. And we close, as usual, with another trans truism. In this one, we ask, what can reduce suicide risk in the trans population? For this, we turn to an excellent article by the Mental Health Commission of Canada. Supportive and strong relationships with family and friends. Completed medical transition, if medical transition is desired. Self-acceptance and awareness. Access to gender-affirming health care. Not having access to lethal means such as guns or potentially deadly medications, and having one's name and pronouns accepted. This all according to Bailey et al. 2014, Bauer et al. 2015, and Haas et al. 2011. We should also note the elephant in the room, the fact that in most states with a Republican majority in their state legislature, several of these preventive measures have been eliminated by law. We fully expect to see the predictable effect of this badly misguided trend borne out over the next few years. You have been listening to Trans Truth, the podcast that speaks the truth about what it means to be transgender. If you are transgender yourself, you have a friend or loved one who is transgender, or if you are simply looking to understand more about the transgender experience, we hope that you have found this episode to be informative and enlightening. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us at info@transtruth.info. Copyright 2023 Trans Truth.